Well, I want to welcome all of you tonight. My name is Karen Montaigne. I am the Director of Volunteer Engagement for the U.S. Naval Sea Cadet Corps. And I'm also a parent in the program. So I know how many of you feel. It's been quite a year. And I just want to start off by thanking you for your support of your child and of this program. And I want you to know we are so committed to continuing to make this the best program it can be. We know for many of you, it's very possible that you're joined before or after the pandemic started, and you may not have gone through a training season in person before. So we are really happy you're here tonight, and we look forward to answering your questions and telling you all about it. We have a fantastic speaker here tonight. We have Vahan Manoogian. He is our national headquarters representative for the Southwest area. But he's also had multiple roles in this program and has a wealth of experience. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Vahan Manoogian.
So I get to turn my camera on. Good evening, everyone. If it is nighttime for our friends on the East Coast, I'm Chief Vahan Manoogian. I'm the National Headquarters Representative for the Naval Sea Cadet Corps, responsible for California and Nevada. So where I sit, we still have sunshine going, but that'll go away in a little bit. And I want to welcome everyone for taking a little time out of your busy schedule to join us. Whether you are brand new to the program or if you have been around for a while, we hope that you'll garner some information out of our little presentation. And I just want to start by giving you kind of an overview of what we're going to do. We're going to go through a little PowerPoint briefing because nothing would be military without PowerPoint. We will answer some questions that have already been submitted. And I believe, Karen, we're going to put a link up in the chat box for our little question form, or you can submit some questions via the chat. Karen will moderate that, and at the end of the presentation, we'll address as many of those questions as we can. If your question does not get answered tonight, please do not worry, because we're going to take all the questions, whether they're submitted in the chat box or through our Google form, and we're going to create a frequently asked questions or FAQ paper. And that will get sent out not only to the people who submitted via Google form, but get sent out to everybody within the program. So you should get your answers one way or another. If at that point your question is not answered, reach out to your unit folks and they will be able to at least start the process. If they don't have the answer, then they can find the answer out for you. So with that said, let me go ahead and share my screen here. And give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Modern technology is always a beautiful thing. Okay, so we will kick off here. So we want to welcome you to our webinar. So here's our goals today. 1, we're going to give you an overview of our summer and springtime training programs. And just for your information, a lot of this that's being shared today is relevant not only during spring and summer, but through all the different trainings that we know your cadets will participate in as they go through the program. We'll review the process of how to get involved into training. Review a couple things that you can do to get ready for training starting now, because it is never too early to get started. And then we'll go ahead and answer some questions. Okay, so our training program overview in 2021, and we acknowledge that last year was just a challenge for everyone, and we're hoping that 2021 brings us some new adventures. For those who have never been to an away training, we're hoping that you'll get that opportunity. But trainings this year will either be in person, meaning overnights included, or day camp style, where you take the cadet to and then pick them up at the end of the day. They may be virtual or a combination of both. And that's really dependent on the local regulations and requirements. Different parts of the country are opening up at different paces and in different ways from the COVID pandemic. And so a lot of what we offer will be based on those requirements. So if you're asking the question, well, will they have in-person trainings where I live? That's a very broad question. And so we have to answer that based on where you're at and what's going on in your local area. But in a normal situation, trainings will last anywhere from 5 to 14 days. Some local trainings, given our situation, may be conducted over courses of weekends. Sea Cadets, if you have a Sea Cadet, which is the older of the two programs, all Sea Cadets must attend recruit training either in person or in a combination of virtual and modified in person in order to attend any advanced trainings. So if you signed up in the last year, maybe your cadet got the opportunity to go to RT Phase 1, which was a virtual version or portion of recruit training. And they just have to do a follow-on either at their unit level or go away to one of the Phase 2 trainings, which is an in-person module. For our younger cadets or Navy League cadets, they're not required to attend training. However, in order to participate in any of the Navy League advanced trainings, you have to go to basic orientation. So where do you find out all these great trainings that we have available? There's a master training list that is what I call a living document, meaning it is updated as trainings are added and approved. They're automatically wind up on the master list, which is on our Magellan public site. And we will go ahead, Karen, let's go ahead and publish that link into the chat box so folks have it. And when you click on this link, you're going to get that very page you're looking at now. And you can search for the different trainings that are offered. You can search by category. You can search by subject, which is the way it's sorted on the screen. You can search by location, and location meaning different states. And one of the things I like to tell folks is the beauty of Sea Cadets, when the travel requirements allow, is to really move out of your comfort zone and take the opportunity to go to different states, meet new people, and try different things. It truly is part of that creating a venture of a lifetime. If you have specific dates that you can go to training, you can look at trainings based on the dates that they're available. There's a search function if you need to go to recruit training. You can click on that and it'll list all the recruit trainings across the country. And in the same light, if you want to do a virtual training, you can click on that radio button and it'll bring up all the virtual trainings. So let's go over some sight words, and this is important for folks who are brand new to the program. You're going to hear acronyms and words, and you may wonder, what do those words mean and who are these people? And just so you have a chance to practice, we will post things in Google Classroom or iReady or GoNoodle or Seesaw, because we know that you probably know those terms also. But Magellan is our master online system, and that's how we administer electronically the Sea Cadet program. The system is only accessible by our authorized unit staff. So as you're reading training descriptions, and it talks about submit this document via Magellan, that's something that your unit folks will have to do. That is not available to families. They don't have access to that. So we know a cadet is any of our young people who are either Navy Leaguers or Sea Cadets, and they want to experience the adventure of a lifetime and usually have no fears. We then have the adult escorts, and I will do a shout out now to all our escorts and all our volunteers that are on the line. Without our volunteer adult escorts, our training program would not happen. These are the folks who are registered to work at our local units and at our training sites. Every one of us has been through a national background check. We've had to take different classes and certifications just to be an adult escort so that we can provide the safest possible training environment. The other term you'll read through the descriptions is the COTC, or the Commanding Officer of the Training Contingent. Just like at your local unit where you have a commanding officer responsible for that unit, every one of our trainings has a commanding officer who's responsible and accountable for all the operations of that individual training. It's real important, though, to remember that even though they are the ones responsible and accountable, they will not necessarily be the one that you are talking to when you get a question answered. Our COs who run trainings usually have a phenomenal staff that they work with. In fact, myself, having been the CO of trainings that are as small as 12 and as big as 600, can tell you that I'm probably the least important person in the whole operations. And it's really the staff who do their little portions who make the operations work. And then, of course, the third part of that triangle is you, the parents. You're the ones who have entrusted us with your most precious cargo, and you shoulder all the fears that your cadets don't have. So together, we're the ones who make this summer training work, and no one is more important than the other. We need the cadets, we need our adult escorts, and we certainly need you, our families, and our parents. Okay, so HMC, and that's another acronym. HMC stands for Hospital Corpsman Chief. That's me. I have a saying that I use for success, and that is, if it hasn't stopped breathing and it's not bleeding to death, it's not an emergency. And we realize that to you, one of the smallest details may seem like it's a life or death thing, and it's really not. Everything is fixable as long as you communicate. So I want you to remember that as you get closer to training and you get a little antsy and things may not be going the way you want them to, just take a deep breath and remember that it's probably not an emergency. So how do I get involved in training? Everything starts at your unit. And I want you to remember that. I want you to say it to yourself a couple times. I always hear my 6-year-old in his classroom, the teacher says something and says, okay, let's all say that together. So let's all say that together. Everything starts at your unit. Every unit has a different procedure for registering their cadets. And they are the only ones who can get your request into the Magellan system. So you can't bypass that step. And the reason I say every unit has a different procedure, across the country, we have units that have 5 cadets. We have units that have 150 cadets. So you can imagine that our larger units probably have a couple more steps in their procedures just to keep all the long-tailed cats in the room full of rocking chairs all lined up and taken care of. Whereas our smaller units, you may get a little more personal one-on-one attention. So just check with your unit and do it early to make sure that if they have anything that they need you to do, that you can get those steps taken care of also. Okay, so going to training really is a progressive thing, and it happens by 3 groups of people. First is you, our parents, and our families. So you look at the training list, look for any prerequisites, find the things that excite you. For our Sea Cadets and our Navy leaders, once you've done that basic training, go on that list and find the things that really sound exciting. Even if it's not anything you've done before. One of the beauties of our training program is you get to experience different opportunities that may open your eyes up to something you never knew was out there. But once you've done that, your unit will have you complete a training request form, which is the 001 form. And you submit that to your unit along with any fees. Once you have submitted all your paperwork, you'll follow any directions in an individual welcome aboard packet or any of the other instructions that are provided. Most, and I won't say all, but most of the trainings will post any links to their welcome aboard packets and other instructions on the training detail page. And the training detail page, if you remember a couple slides ago, we gave you that link for the master training schedule. On there will be any attachments and additions and things you need to read. I cannot emphasize enough, you have to read the directions in order to make this work. And you get your cadets to training. Those are your responsibilities. There's a couple other things you'll need to do, and those instructions will be in the welcome aboard packet. Here's an important thing to remember, though, that all our staff that support trainings may not necessarily live in the same time zone you do. So please be considerate if you're going to make a phone call, because there is a phone number available. Just remember that if you live in California and it's 8:30 at night and a question pops in your mind and there's a phone number, you don't necessarily want to call New York or Connecticut. Because those folks have probably already gone to bed at that point. So just be considerate of that when you're making phone calls. Also remember that our staff are not only working with you as an individual, but they have everyone in the training to be responsible for. So if you don't get an immediate phone call back or an immediate response to the email, all our trainings are run by volunteers who, as all of us, have jobs and families and things that they have to tend to. Our experience has been, though, that they work really hard to get information to you as quickly as they can. Okay, so you've done your part now. You've turned in your forms, you're ready to go to training. You turn all that into your unit. Now your unit has a little work to do. They have to verify that you're qualified, and verified means not only meeting the training prerequisites, but they also have to make sure that if you have anything at the unit level that needs to be done, that you've met those requirements. And once you've cleared that hurdle, they will register you into Magellan. They will submit any training fees that you gave them, unless they have directed you as the family to go to a training site, pay portal, and pay the training directly. So you want to make sure you coordinate that with your unit. Once you have paid your fees, you're confirmed, you're approved for training, as you're getting ready to go to training, they're going to hand you a folder, what we call a service record book. Some people call it a service jacket. If they use that term, the service jacket for our new folks doesn't mean something you wear, but it's actually a file folder that has all your paperwork in it. Your application, medical forms, authorizations, all of that. And make sure that you have that in your hot little hands before you go to training. Without a service jacket or service record book, the training contingents cannot accept you into training. So that's really important. And if we all work together and kind of watch each other's backs and make sure that that one little step happens, it will save a lot of headaches for folks when you get there. Your unit is also your first point of contact with questions or concerns. And that goes back to what I said previously about unit or a training contingent responsible for a large number of people, whereas your unit can support you and the few other people who may be going to training. So ask them first, they may have an answer for you. So the third group of people in this little progression is the training command itself. Once your unit submits, they will review their request, make sure you meet any requirements. They will confirm you in the Magellan system, and that means they will hold your space. When you look at the detail pages in Magellan, you will see kind of a progression. It will say how many spaces are available in training, how many people have submitted, how many are confirmed, how many are approved. And those numbers change all over the place. So you have to remember that when you went in and looked and it said, oh, there are 15 spaces available for a training, but maybe by the time your information makes it in the system, maybe they're on a waiting list already, or there's not that many spaces. Until you actually have a confirmed space, everything is up in the air. And again, our units work, or our training commands work really quickly to review and confirm requests as quickly as they can. Once that's done, your space is held and they receive your money, then they're able to approve your training orders. Once you have approved training orders, unless something changes, whether you failed a PRT prior to training, you had a medical condition that prevents you from going, The big one this year for this summer, and I really need everyone to put this in their brain cage and hold on to it, is you will see a lot of trainings that may be posted as in person. So on March 14th, our plan is that we're going to offer in-person trainings during summer of 2021, but everything is up in the air given the pandemic situation. So what we may have planned for and approved now at any time until that first day of training can always change. So it's very important that you're continually watching and communicating with the training commands. They are going to do a very good job this year, as they always do, making sure that any of the families that are approved for their trainings will get up-to-date information if there's going to be any major changes. Again, please remember that volunteers who work trainings are managing more than just your request. So please be patient. And I will put in my annual plug that I do for my area, and I'll kind of put it across the country. We have to respect one another. And it's very important that we have an understanding, both from our side as Sea Cadets and your side as parents. And so when you're making your request, please use the same common courtesy in your emails and your text messages and your phone calls that you would expect your out to folks who are supporting them. And we'll just kind of leave it at that. Okay, and remember, if it hasn't stopped breathing, it's not bleeding to death. It is not an emergency. Okay, let's get ready for training. And the best thing you can do is read, read, read. 70% of your success at training is going to be how you prepare. Okay, read the details on the Magellan page and follow the directions in any information you're provided. If there's a challenge or a question, you're not quite sure whether you're qualified to go to a training, you're going to use commercial travel, and the welcome aboard letter says, we need you to arrive no later than 3 p.m., but the only flight you can get will get there at 5 p.m. Those are all things that you want to ask and take care of ahead of time. Everything is possible. Well, I shouldn't say everything. Almost everything is possible if you communicate. Never make an assumption that we will know what you need and how we can support you, because it won't happen. And at the end of the day, it's our cadets, when they attempt to show up at a training site or something goes wrong, we can usually track it back that someone didn't communicate in either direction. So make sure everything is set up before your cadet leaves the house and goes to training. Instructions are written for a reason, and I'll put that out there also. Very frequently, we will get at training when something doesn't go right, but my unit said I could do it this way, and that's usually not in your best interest. Well, we respect all the experiences we have across the country, and trust me, there are people that are 10 times smarter than me out there doing the good things that we do. Everything's written for a reason, and we set our cadets up for failure when we say, well, at our unit, here's how we do it. So you just tell them that's what we do. Or, I remember when I was a cadet 30 years ago, and here's what we did, son. So you're going to do it this way. Don't set your cadets up for that. If you have a concern, if there's a problem, if you can't meet an expectation that's been put out there, communicate with that training command and work things out before you get to training. Reread the instructions as you get closer to training. You can't read the details enough. If your cadet is traveling by commercial carrier, please be sure the command knows the travel plans ahead of time so they can make sure the arrival times work for their schedules. Over the last 20 years, I can't tell you the number of times that I've gotten a phone call on the day of training saying, my daughter just called from the airport and said no one's picked her up. And we look at our list and we go, we didn't know your daughter was coming. And it was all because the parent had assumed that we would know because they were coming from out of state, that we would pick them up at the airport. So don't be one of those folks. It's not fair to your cadets. It's not fair to you as a parent. And it's certainly not fair to our training volunteers. Okay, medical exams and medical histories, they are different. Medical examination is one that must be completed by a medical provider. And the medical exams with the revision to our regulations, to our admin policies, are now good for 15 months, which means that in order to attend an in-person training or unit drill, you must have a medical exam that is dated at least 15 months for the purpose of training from the last day of training. Now is the time to, and we know again with COVID, getting into the doctor may be a challenge. So it's something that you need to be looking at now and working with your unit and your staff to try to overcome that challenge. We cannot admit any cadets into an in-person training environment if they don't have a valid medical exam. And that is really for their safety. Things change as kids grow, and we just need to make sure that everyone is in a safe environment when they go to training. So that is the medical exam. You can get a blank form from your unit. As a matter of fact, Karen, why don't we go ahead and if you or Alicia can find that link and to that form, maybe we can post that in the chat room for folks to have. The second form is one that you completed when you signed your cadet up for training, and that's the medical history form. That's where you tell us everything we need to know if we had to take them to the doctor or the hospital while they're at training. That's completed by you when you register for the program. And on that form, the only thing that needs to happen is we ask you to update it with any changes within 30 days of training. Okay, and all that means is a simple review of the form. If nothing has changed on the back in the little open area, you can put no changes, sign and date it, and that'll meet that requirement. If there is a change, go ahead and make those notations. And your unit, again, if they're a larger unit, they may have a procedure for doing that. That may be part of their review process before you check out for training. But as I put on this little slide here, prevent a firestorm. Do not hide any medical information. You must be truthful. Many times we get folks who don't always put all the cards out on the table because they're afraid that we will deny their opportunity to attend trainings. That is farthest from the truth, with the only exception being that there are certain trainings that we offer that an individual's medical condition or medical history may prevent them from safely participating. And when we have to weigh safety versus allowing the experience, we will always err on the side of safety. But those are one of those things that, again, if you're concerned about that, if you're not quite sure if they would meet a requirement or that there might be an issue, communicate that up front and ahead of time. And that way we can work with you. Most of the time we're able to find some solution, but there are times where we have to say, unfortunately, this time around, it won't work. And there's one other part of that that I forgot to put in the briefing, and that is the accommodation forms that some of our cadets have when they join the program. Our training commands will do everything they can to try to accommodate those ADA forms that have been submitted. But it's important that information gets sent to the command ahead of time so that we can review it, because just like medications and medical history, there are certain arenas where an accommodation works at the local unit level, but will not work in a training environment. So those are the things we want to take care of before we get too far down the road so that there's not disappointment at the end of the train track. Medications of training. And this is, again, another important one. If your cadet takes medications, whether they're over the counter or prescription, we want you to provide that information ahead of time so that we can review it and make sure that we're in a position and have the proper staff to make sure that that can be supervised. 70% of the time, it's usually an antibiotic of one kind or a regular over-the-counter medication that they're taking, or if they have a skin condition that they need to use a cream and it has to happen every night. Those are not a problem. but we need to make sure that that supplemental form, and your unit can provide you that form, is filled out properly. If it is a prescription medication though, the medical provider has to sign that form before we can accept it. In fact, the form has to be signed by you, the parent, the unit CO or their representative, so they acknowledge they know the medication's being taken, and again, the medical provider, if it's a prescription. There are no exceptions to this rule. And so if you know now that your cadet is going to use an inhaler and you haven't had that form completed yet, do that now, get it into their file, and then they can be submitted. If it's a medication, and this is more for our folks who have been in the program a while, and in summer 2019, they were taking an inhaler and they have an authorization, and that the inhaler prescription hasn't changed, they can still submit that same form. When in doubt though, just review that with the doctor and say, hey, they're going to train again this summer. It's going to be a little high intensity. Just want to make sure that's still okay, and get that form submitted. Once you submit it to the COTC and the training command, they will review and approve that. Not all trainings are equipped to allow medications, and usually it's medications of certain kind. For example, we've had cadets who have injectable medications that they need. And some of our training commands are not equipped for that. So if you were to go to CB training and the folks there didn't have any medical staff available, then maybe doing an injectable medication doesn't work for them. As opposed to if you came to a training command that, for example, I was at, and I have the medical background, so I would say that's not a problem. We can take care of that. The other important thing to put in your brain cage is training is not the place to see if a cadet can go without medication. Okay, especially if they're taking ADHD meds, Concertas, things of that nature, where it's a normal part of their regular routine. Please do not try to see if they can go 10 to 14 days without taking that medication. It is a recipe for failure from the beginning. And we certainly don't want to see any cadet fail when they get to training. So here's just a couple pictures of different things for especially our new folks. If you haven't been to boot camp or recruit training or Navy League orientation, here's a little incentive for you to get through those trainings. For those that have never been to an advanced training, here's some of the things that you might be able to partake in. So just get ready, because the adventure definitely begins now. Okay, getting ready for training, the PRT. Fitness is a culture, and it's one that we need to continually be embracing. One of the challenges of having been virtual for so long, not only in Sea Cadets, but in school and in other events that we do, folks haven't been getting out as much as they might. So it's important to review the PRT requirements, which you can get from your unit. You can also get on the public Homeport page, but it's important that everyone has a passing PRT within 6 months of submitting a Magellan request. The training system will not accept a training request if you don't have a valid PRT. So you're going, well, we haven't gotten together, and how am I going to do a PRT? There's a temporary policy in place, and your local unit can help you, where you can have a PRT administered at home by your parents, and the scores are submitted to your local unit according to whatever their procedures are. And it's very important, if we have any cadets on the line, listen, very important to this important info. And parents, if you're on the line also, very important that you follow this. Don't fudge the numbers. It will catch up with you. If you report that you did a passing PRT and we submit, and then you sit and you do nothing until training time, you may get to training, and that may be one of the requirements for passing training. Definitely, if you have never been to training and you're going to recruit training, you must pass a PRT at recruit training in order to pass the course. So start now. Work yourself up if you have been like many of us and just aren't quite up to where we should be fitness-wise. Now's the time to start because you have 3, 4, 5 months to get ready. And you don't want that to be the one thing that holds you up. Other things you can do to get ready, and these are in no particular order. Get your CBAG ready early. So when you welcome that, or when you download that welcome aboard packet, every training with very rare exception will have a list of things that you need to bring. But you can start getting ready now even if you don't know what training you're going to, because every training will probably require you to bring at least your working uniform. So that will be either the blue type 1s, the green type 3s, or a combination of both, depending on what your unit uses and has available. If on the CBAG list, they say, we want you to bring 2 or 3 sets of working uniforms, and you go, oh my goodness, I only have one set of type 3s. If your unit or you have one of the old sets, type 1s, that's considered a working uniform, and you can, unless there's really a reason, and they'll spell it out in their training information, you should be able to bring combination of uniforms as long as they're complete. Most trainings, with rare exception, will want you to bring your dress uniform. That's either in summertime, it would be the dress whites. If you don't have those yet because your unit hasn't met, you're brand new to the program, and you haven't gotten to that point, you have a couple months to get ready. If at the end of the day, there's a true challenge of getting a set of dress uniforms, again, communicate with the training command. We have, at least at the trainings that I've participated in, if we know ahead of time that someone is challenged, we try to work with some of our local units to help that person out and get them taken care of. So at least while they're training, they have something to work with and they can be part of that bigger picture. Break in your boots. Do not buy a set of boots a week before training and then expect, especially for recruit training and other high intensity trainings, that your boots are going to be ready for you when you get to training, and that will simply spell pain and great discomfort. So start now breaking your boots. There's plenty of YouTube videos and instructions out there on how you can do that. But again, start now. Complete any pre-work needed for training. Again, read the training information letter or letters that they provide. If you're going by commercial carrier, we've already talked about that. Make sure they have the information, but because of the fluid situation with our training sites, make sure you get refundable tickets or at least get travel insurance. And we completely understand the least expensive fares are non-refundables, but if you get a non-refundable ticket and we have to cancel at the end of the day, unless the airlines are willing to work with you, and we'll provide you details of why the cancellation happened, you may be on the hook for those ticket fees, and we certainly don't want to see folks have to do that. PT, 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 just get ready. Do your runs, do your push-ups, do your crunches. You can never get good enough. If you are good now, then push yourself to get better and move to the next level. Practice grooming standards before going to training. Get your haircut in order. Gents, if you're at the process where you're beginning to shave, it's not something you do all the time, get that practice in while you're at home so you can be squared away when you get to training. If you have any questions, talk to your parents, talk to your unit, talk to the other cadets in your unit, and get some tips and tricks from them of what you can do to have a successful experience. So we're going to open it up to questions now. That's kind of the briefing that I prepared for you. We have some questions that were submitted ahead of time, and I'm going to go through those first, and then we're going to turn it back over to Karen, and she is going to provide me any other questions that we might be able to answer that weren't already answered in the briefing. And so I'm going to take these in no particular order. Okay, we have the Devons family out of Massachusetts who asked, with the 500-mile travel limit on training, will there be more recruit training opportunities available? In terms of more opportunities, I can't answer that because it's again based on facilities that are available. But I can tell you that right around June 1st, we're looking at removing the travel restriction so that folks will be able to travel to and from different locations. The caveat to that for folks that are out there going, well, how can they travel state to state? There are restrictions in place. We're going to put that responsibility and onus back on our families because everyone has their own comfort level and every state has their own requirements. So that's one of the things you'll want to look at should you choose to send your child, for example, out of state to go to training or out of your local community. Let's see what else we have. That was, everyone asked about travel restrictions. Oh, here's another one we have from the D. Temecula family in California. My son is a new Navy League cadet. Will there be any in-person orientation trainings in our allowed travel region this summer? Again, whether there will be, that remains to be seen as our staffs are still putting together training opportunities. But I do know that where they are available, the ones who accept commercial travelers, you'll obviously have the opportunity to go to those trainings. Here's another one, and I'm sure people are asking this question. We have the Grayling family from Michigan who asked, will the impact of having received the COVID vaccine impact regulations for adult volunteers? And I was careful to make sure that I gave the correct answer. So I checked just today with our deputy director, and I will give you the exact response that we got on that so that everyone is hearing the same message. So my question to him was, just want to confirm the vaccines are not required as of now. This requirement may change at a later date. And he said that's correct. They are strongly encouraged, will require after it has full authorization from the FDA, only ADA and medical exemptions after that. So at this point, the COVID vaccine is not required from those that would be expected to take it in order to go to training. And we'll re-examine that once the FDA gives full approval, and that information will be passed on to our unit. So I hope that answered that question. Let me also touch on the concerns that might be out there, especially with in-person trainings. We have a very robust COVID intake and policy in place for in-person, both local and go-away trainings and day camp style trainings. And there are certain steps that have to be followed with regards to distancing and cleaning and food preparation, and all those things are in place. Our ultimate goal is a safe training environment. And one of the things and the ways that you as families will get involved is there's a form that when you go to both your local trainings and your go-away trainings, whether they're day camp or overnight, there's a form to fill out that asks you a series of questions. You may have already seen this. Make sure that that form is completed and turned in. At the beginning of each day, there are the health checks that we do. We make sure that no one has a fever, they haven't been exposed to anybody, that it may have the COVID, have picked up COVID. And again, it's all about communication. We want to make sure that everyone is safe, but that triangle has to make sure that we all follow the same rules. And again, if you have any questions or concerns on that, your local unit and the COTC is the one to talk to. Let's see what else we have. We have the Camado family out of New Mexico, and their question was, will online trainings be more open to all regions? I'm going to answer that with a yes, again, contingent upon the resources that are available. Some of our virtual trainings can handle hundreds of cadets at one time. Others of our virtual trainings we've set up with various contractors. And so there's a limited number of seats. But anytime there's a virtual experience, we will do everything we can to make that available to as many folks as possible. Let's see, some general training questions. Okay, here's another one. And this one comes from the Trumbull family out of Connecticut. When will we know more about trainings? So what's happening now in all of our areas, and we have 5 areas in the country, and every one of the headquarters reps in those areas is now gathering information from their different training commands and going through and reviewing trainings and approving them. Once they're approved, they get put into the Magellan system. They become available to you on that public page. We, of course, want to make sure that as many trainings are up by the middle of April so that folks can start planning. But really the only stumbling block we come across in posting trainings is we want to confirm with as much certainty as we can that local folks are able to conduct the training safely. And if they have venues that they're using, that those venues have committed to us with enough certainty that we're not going to have to cancel. Obviously, it's always up in the air given our situation. So those are kind of the questions that were thrown my way ahead of time. Karen, I'm going to open it up to you and Alicia to ask any others.
Thank you so much, Vahan. And I just first have to thank you for giving such a comprehensive overview and taking the time to walk everyone through all of this tonight. One of the things I think parents are trying to determine is when they go to the training list, there's maybe a one-line description of what the training is, so they don't necessarily understand what they should be looking for, or which trainings that their child is eligible for necessarily. And would you just recommend they work with their unit on that and find out what the unit recommends?
Absolutely. So talk to your unit. They're again your best resource because they may have experience. But what we can do on our end, and Karen, let's make a note of this. We'll ask our COTCs in that little description box, maybe to put more than just one sentence. If there's any specific requirements for the training, or even just one or two sentences about what will happen at training, we can certainly do that. The other resource you have, which is available to you whether you have signed up for a training or not, when you go to that training detail page, if a welcome aboard packet has been posted, you are more than welcome to download that and read through all that information ahead of time, even if you're not signed up for training.
Thank you. We have a lot of parents whose cadets are still in need of recruit training. And one of the questions they have is how can they tell on the Homeport training list which is a phase 1 versus a phase 2? I'm not sure I can answer that right now.
Not even a problem. So if you look at the RT training code, if it is followed with the letter V, as in Vahan or Victor, that is a virtual training. It is probably, with rare exception, the phase 1 training, the virtual portion of recruit training. If the recruit training code is followed by the letter P, as in Papa, that is a phase 2 recruit training, and that is either an in-person overnight or an in-person day camp style training. If it is a recruit training and it has the letter L in front of it, that is what we refer to as a local training. So that might be a recruit training where someone in an area has 30 beds that have been made available to them to do a traditional recruit training. And so they have limited that training to just the local folks in their area. If there is no letter following the training code, then it is a nationally, what we call a national training, meaning open up to anyone in the country as long as they can get to training. And that is usually a full-on, what I will call a phase 1, phase 2 combined. Everything's all in one package, one-shot deal.
Thank you. We have questions about how to pay for training. Can they set up payment plans? How do they do that? When is the money required? That type of thing.
Okay. So a lot of the trainings now, with the advent of Square and PayPal and all those other payment platforms, have set up ways that units and individuals can submit their training fees online. For those who don't, and everyone is not in that position, fees can get paid by having a check sent. Checks should be sent directly to the training command. Again, work with your local unit and see if they're the ones who submit your fees or if they want you to submit directly to the units. I don't have the policy in front of me, but I don't believe there's a requirement for money orders. In fact, money orders, well, we used to require those years ago just because they were guaranteed funds. Actually sending a regular check is better for us because you can track it, we can track it. Here's the thing with sending in payments. The way Magellan works is if a training costs $200, I'm just pulling that number out of the air, as we post payments to your account or your set of orders, once your receipts equal $200, the orders get approved. Unless there is an arrangement that you've made with that local training. So if we prefer that you not do payments unless you've talked to the training command ahead of time. Part of that is from a record keeping standpoint, but the other is that we can't approve those orders until we've received the training fees. The other option for making payments and talk to your local units about this, what we call the 3 Friends Get a Free Training. And that's a program that's been around for a while. And if you recruit 3 folks to join the program, and they actually do join, then your cadet has the opportunity to get a free training that is valued at the maximum for a normal 2-week training. So I'd have to look at the book now. I think it's $150 or $200, for example. If that's the maximum training amount, that's the maximum credit you could get for a particular going to training. And really where that comes into play is some of our higher end trainings like scuba, some of our SEAL trainings, some of our aviation trainings that cost a little bit more than our normal training evolutions may actually cost more to attend. And if you use one of your 3 Friend certificates, and again, I'm just going to put some numbers out there. If the training costs $500 and the 3 Friend certificate has a max value of $200, then you would need to pay the balance of the $300. But those are things you can talk with your local unit and the training commands about.
Thank you, Vahan. We have several questions about, and I know you touched on the CBAG, but we had several questions about how, what they need to bring, where they get the uniforms, all of this kind of stuff, what needs to be in the CBAG. And I just want to let everyone know that we have our Senior Leadership Cadet Council is going to put together a video that we will share nationally that walks everyone through the basics of what needs to go into a CBAG and how to pack it. Now, the requirements vary training to training, especially for our advanced trainings, but at least this will really help your cadet learn how to prepare for packing their CBAG for a training. Anything else you want to say on that, Vahan?
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is, again, look at that CBAG list. If there's an item that you truly can't get a hold of, communicate with the training command ahead of time and let them know. They may have a resource. There may be an item on there that you and your local unit look at and go, why are they asking it? That's crazy. Your cadet doesn't need to take that with them. Please don't do that. Everything on a CBAG list has a reason behind it. I know that our headquarters reps are working with our COTCs to really make sure that what we put on the CBAG list is not extravagant. We don't just put it on there because it's always been on there. That we really try to make it, again, it's a team effort for all of us to work together. So if you can't get an item, communicate that ahead of time, but just showing up at training without the item could really make or break that experience for your cadet.
Thank you. Some additional clarity around the 500-mile restriction that's currently in place through May 31st if someone sees an advanced training or a recruit training that's farther away than that, that's after June 1st, are they allowed to sign up for that now?
Yes.
Or do they? Yes. Okay. Great.
And I will give a little caveat on that. If I'm correct with that yes answer, I'm sure I'll hear about that in the next hour or so. And we'll put a note out there. We'll include that in the FAQ.
Thank you. And speaking of which, we are coming up to the top of the hour. And again, you've just given us so much information tonight, Vahan. This has been extremely helpful. I know many of you have submitted questions that we literally, they've just been coming in fast and furious. So not to worry if we didn't get to it tonight. We have record of every chat question that came in, as well as we're going to go through the Google form questions that have come in since earlier today. And we'll put together a very detailed FAQ along with the slides from tonight and a recording. I also want to make sure everyone knows that we are going to be releasing a parent handbook this week. Our director of communications is finishing that as we speak. It's got a ton of information for you. So every parent will get a notification about that with a link to it. And it'll just, I hope, fill in a lot of the blanks for you. And I do want to give our director of communications a chance to add any comments if she'd like. That's Alicia Gavin.
Thank you, Karen. I think you guys did a fantastic job covering it. We really appreciate all of your guys' feedback. And we're going to just try to cover everything your kids do, celebrate your cadets. We know it's been a trying year, but we just want to show them how much we appreciate them and are proud of everything they're doing.
Hey, Karen.
Yes.
For our folks who, and this is only those that once you're finished, if you want to stay on the line for an extra minute, I will give you a little kind of example for those that have never been to recruit training, a chance to see what the end product looks like when you've gone through that experience.
Terrific. Okay, we are just shy of the hour. And again, I just want to thank all of our parents for everything you do. It's been quite a year, and we're just so grateful for your commitment to the program and to your cadets and your children. And we look forward to a very robust training season for them. So thank you again. Watch for our follow-up. And if anyone wants to stay on, you're welcome to. Vahan, back to you.
Thank you. Here we go.
I don't know if there's sound with this, Vahan. We can't hear it, but the picture is telling us a lot.
All right, folks. Well, I hope the audio came through. I heard Karen tell me that it was a little challenged, but that's just kind of what they look at. All that pride that you see in their faces is really what training is about. Trainings are what set us apart from some of the other youth programs that are available out there. And so we hope that as many of our cadets that get an opportunity to participate this summer can. And again, if you have any questions, your unit is the first point of contact. So remember that. And remember HMC's saying, if it hasn't stopped breathing, it's not an emergency, or it hasn't started bleeding to death, it's not an emergency. Thank you everyone for being here. Have a great rest of the weekend, what's left of it, and we'll see everyone at training.
Thanks so much. Good night, everyone. Thank you.